Josh, what is coming up today?
Well, first and my phone is on. So let me turn that down. Great start to the program. Welcome back to us. Coming up in the program, first up, The Weeknd hits back. After being snubbed by the Grammys, by the Recording Academy for the Grammy Awards 2021, he took to Twitter to accuse them of corruption.
Meghan Markle has opened up in a new article about her experiences with miscarriage. Quite a well, I was going to say heartwarming, but it's not. It's a really tug on your heartstrings story in the papers, in an essay where she opened up about her experiences.
And after that, is Johnny out of his depth? The actor has lost a new appeal in terms of his libel trial against The Sun and Amber Heard, and rumour has it he's going to be replaced in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise.
And what is the future for Little Mix? Probably the UK's best loved female band at the minute. What's going to happen to them with Jessie Nelson taking an extended break and Leanne announcing a solo project? More on that later. But we're going to start today with The Weeknd accusing the Grammys of corruption. Josh, what's going on there?
Okay, so basically, the Grammy Awards 2021, the nominations have been revealed. Beyonce, of course, all she has to do is practically breathe on a track, and she'll receive several Grammy nominations for that. She tops the list with 9 nominations. Elsewhere, Taylor Swift has received 6 nominations. BTS, Billie Eilish, Dua Lipa, Doja Cat are among the artists with multiple other nominations. However, The Weeknd, despite having one of the biggest hits of the year with Blinding Lights from his much acclaimed album, didn't receive any nominations whatsoever. He subsequently took to Twitter to demand transparency from the Recording Academy.
Now, this has caused quite a stir because obviously he's had the biggest selling album of the year so far in the US, which had, of course, that amazing track, incredible track, Blinding Lights on it. So a lot of people are shocked because he's had quite a bit of success in other awards recently, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has, but I got to tell you, the Recording Academy actually responded to his outburst, saying that they themselves were surprised. The CEO responded saying he himself was surprised that The Weeknd didn't get nominated for an award, considering all of his success. And he blamed this on the fact that there are fewer awards and nominations to give out than there are deserving artists. But saying that, obviously, Beyonce in quite a few categories, not just on the songs that she's featured on. Of course, her record Black Parade is nominated for multiple awards. And we're talking about Dua Lipa, Billie Eilish. So the fact that all of these guys were nominated multiple times, but The Weeknd's name was ominously left out of the list does raise certain questions about the music industry and where's it going here, especially because, as you said, After Hours, his album was one of the biggest selling albums of this year. Blinding Lights, an absolute banger of a track. I know I was listening to it in my lockdown. I can tell you that right now. But of course, that was a massive track, and really, truly one of the big songs of the summer. Maybe I'm thinking, wild guess here, is it because Blinding Lights was used as the anthem to WrestleMania this year? I don't
know. Maybe, a number of things can take a bit of sparkle off your shine.
Listen, I know that's got absolutely nothing to do with it. I just wanted to get a WWE and WrestleMania mention in there. But it does raise questions, considering the likes of Beyonce, Dua Lipa, Billie Eilish, their names kept on coming up. But yet his appeared nowhere.
Now, there have been some reports, sources close, as the journalists often tend to say, about a breakdown in relationship between The Weeknd and the Recording Academy, about a performance in at the Super Bowl in February, and another performance, maybe at the awards ceremony itself. Can you tell us a bit about that? Do you know anything about that?
I actually don't know much about it, but all I can say is, are we going to see The Weeknd performing at the Grammys 2021? I really don't think so.
Well, yeah, it seems like not now. And I mean, that appears
Well,
from
I mean,
what
listen.
I've been seeing and hearing is where this all has come from. The sources close to The Weeknd say that he was not nominated as a sort of punishment because of this breakdown in discussions around his performance at the Grammy 2021, and how that related in some way to his Super Bowl performance, halftime performance in February.
I mean, listen, obviously the Weeknd's team are obviously going to put out stories like that. Obviously, they're going to be disgruntled due to the fact that he wasn't nominated. And they want to make sure that his music is legit. And they're trying to, it's a bit like Donald Trump, really. He lost the election and he's claiming that the election was rigged. Maybe this is them trying to say that the Recording Academy acted in an unjust way. What I will say is I'm not entirely sure how the voting process works for the Recording Academy, but if the British Academy of Film and Television in terms of BAFTA and the Academy in terms of the Oscars, if they're anything to go by, they're going to have people from up and down the music industry voting and maybe nominating for these awards. So I don't think this is going to be punishment by one person or another. I don't think. I need to double check on the voting rules, but it does raise questions. How does his peer group actually view him as an artist? And maybe is this a hint of maybe he's not very liked in terms of the way he behaves as well, because that also might have something to do with it.
Well, we've sort of semi-quashed that conspiracy there, but you mentioned peer groups, and Elton John posted to Instagram, hashtag Grammy snub, saying that Blinding Lights was the best song of his song of the year, taking to Instagram, huge picture of The Weeknd, obviously accusing the Grammys of intentionally avoiding adding him to the nominations list.
Yeah, and also I think Nicki Minaj has also spoken out against the Recording Academy about that as well. So listen, he does have stars coming to his defense. Obviously, listen, you're not going to get on with everybody, and of course you're going to have your friends, you're going to have your foes. I mean, look at Nicki Minaj and Cardi B. They've had their fair bit of fights back in the year. So listen, not everyone's going to be liked. But listen, there are questions that are going to be raised and that are being raised by The Weeknd. And I think his outburst, he says he wants transparency. And I think the way the Recording Academy not blasted back, but the way they responded to his outburst kind of suggests it was a bit of a poor response, wasn't it? It was a kind of a bit like, yeah, I'm surprised you weren't nominated too, but there are just way more artists than there are awards. But that's utter rubbish, because he could have been put in for one nomination or the other. But what I will say is, we saw this in Taylor Swift's Netflix documentary. There was one of the first scenes that stood out to me was when she was on the phone to her manager about Reputation, and Reputation wasn't recognized really that much by the Grammys, and she said to her manager, I have to make a better record. And that's what she said. So maybe as well, is this a little nod to The Weeknd going, right, you've had a great track in Blinding Lights, and yes, maybe that song alone should have been recognized, but in terms of your album, was it that just because it was best, just because it sold well, doesn't mean that it's good quality? So maybe he does need to make a better record potentially as well.
Well, often we do see a bit of disparity in what the critics consider good art and what the public, the paying, subscribing, listening public consider good art. More drama around the Grammys. Bieber has accused or complained that he was miscategorized with his album this year. I think they put him in the pop category, and he wasn't happy about that.
Yeah, I think he believes he should have been in the R&B category, really, doesn't he? I mean, listen, at the same time, it's all pop culture, isn't it? when millions of people buy it, it is popular music. I mean, pop can be defined in many ways. Is it cheesy pop? Is what he's referring to back in the old days when he did less of this rap stuff and more kind of Despacito, baby sort of music? Is that pop, or is pop really a variety of genres all put into one, because pop is short for popular, and of course his music is best-selling. I mean, the thing is, I'm sure The Weeknd is looking at Justin Bieber going, mate, calm down, at least you were nominated. Do you know what I mean?
Pablo in the comments, hi to everyone who's watching, by the way, Mark, Peter and Pablo. Do hit us up in the comments box to the side or below, however you're watching this, however it appears on your screen, and ask us some questions or get in touch with your thoughts on today's story. But Pablo says BTS was robbed, but BTS, of course, are the first Korean group to receive an award nomination for Dynamite, a song that is literally, it's engraved into my head.
It is when we think of the word smash hit, Dynamite is going to be in the lexicon of pop culture when it comes to the word smash hit. Those two words are going to be linked together forever. I mean, the way BTS have crossed boundaries, they're not just, this is the thing with BTS, they're not just K-pop anymore. They are a worldwide pop culture phenomenon. This is a group that has crossed so many boundaries and hit so many markets and demographics worldwide. I mean, my mum, right? I'm just going to give this an example. My mum now has Dynamite as her ringtone. So this is how much the song Dynamite has crossed over into the lexicon of pop culture. Is people are downloading it everywhere for all kinds of different purposes. They're using it for all kinds of different purposes. And the thing is, BTS, as you said, they're the first Korean pop group to be nominated ever. They have made history. Arguably, maybe they should have been nominated for more. However, I think this is the beginning of BTS. You know, that BTS, they're a worldwide phenomenon now, but they are going to grow to even bigger heights. You know, I'm telling you right now, BTS are scratching the surface. When it comes to world domination, like One Direction, now that One Direction are no longer in terms of a group, BTS I'm calling this. And BTS have stolen the title of world domination.
There just seem to be like one. I don't know whether the music industry agrees on which male group or which female group is going to take center stage. There does only seem to be one that's mega popular at the time. I mean, we'll get to one that's you know, the features in question later on in tonight's broadcast. But you know, if you think back, you know, there was Pussycat Dolls, there was maybe Girls Aloud, who was sort of parallel to them, and then the Spice Girls. You know, it doesn't seem like there's several competing groups anymore. There seems to be just one, which the industry throws its weight behind, and then when they split up, the sort of space is made for another one to take the spot.
Yeah, maybe, but at the same time, there is room for everyone, I think. And the thing is, you know, the Pussycat Dolls and Girls Aloud were around back in the day around the same time. Girls Aloud didn't really cross over that much into America. I mean, the thing is, it just depends on the fans and the way the world approaches bands, and the way the world opens up their arms and welcomes these artists and groups in. You know, just because you put a group out there doesn't mean that they're gonna be successful. I don't think there is one formula for a group. You know, maybe there was back in the 90s, and there was that typical 90s groups, and that's why we saw so many of them. But in terms of, if we're looking at the 2010s and and going into 2020, I think, you know, there isn't that one formula. It's not like X Factor where you can just put groups together and go, hey, presto, we've got a best-selling band. No, they've got to properly appeal, and they've got to use all different ways, and that's the thing. BTS have a completely different sort of image than the one that One Direction had. Do you know what I mean? And One Direction have a completely different sort of image.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So there are going to be certain groups that appeal to certain different ages, and there isn't that one formula. I think the world is ready for different sorts of genres, especially in the way in which we welcome K-pop into our hearts.
Well, let's leave the Grammys there, shall we? Because I'm sure we'll be returning to the Grammys when we indeed find out who has won the awards. Maybe there'll be some more history made in the new year. But let's move now to Meghan Markle, who's written an essay in the New York Times talking about her experience with losing her second child. It's actually, I've read some excerpts to it, and she's very frank about the actual moment, and she paints a really detailed picture of literally play by play what happened. And it was, to sort of as we talked about so many times on our Offbeat, with how sort of closed off and sort of prepared the royal family is to the public. This is strangely sort of close to the truth, telling of something quite personal.
I agree. Listen, I actually can't slate Meghan Markle for this. I'm not the biggest fan of Meghan Markle. I've fallen more and more out of love with her over the years. I loved her at first, and then some of her and Harry's actions, particularly, I know we've discussed the whole wreath and Remembrance Day and the photo shoot at the graveyard that they had. I had so many words about that. When it comes to this essay, I think brave is the only word that I can use. I think this is a good move, actually, and I'm not just talking about Meghan Markle. I'm talking about the concept and of miscarriage as a whole. This was such a taboo subject, and I look at her and I look at people also like Chrissy Teigen. Chrissy Teigen was so unbelievably open and also in depth about her own experience, practically giving a play-by-play. And the
pictures she shared really sort of stick in my mind.
Oh, absolutely. But also the essay that she wrote afterwards, and she took time out to process before writing the essay. And we remember with Meghan Markle as well, this happened in July. We're now in November, nearly December. So this has been quite a few months since this has happened. So this isn't her sharing it straight away just for the headlines as well. This is obviously this is something that she's been dealing with for a while, and she felt the need to share. And I think it's good that these women are talking about this, because this is such a painful thing for any family to go through. And it truly is. I know marriages that have been destroyed by this. By this sort of happened, because people close themselves off from their partners as well. And I think the fact that Meghan and Chrissy have been so open about this, I think this is a real game changer in the way that people should approach this, because we should see this as, yes, this happens. This happens every day. This happens to normal people, and it happens to celebrities as well. People have this image in their mind of celebrities are almost untouchable. The fact of the matter is they're not. And we have this image of marriages breaking down in Hollywood left, right, and center. But the fact of the matter is, maybe it's because although they want to keep stuff private, I think we forget that there are issues that happen in marriages. I mean, we would never have thought of Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. I just said Amber Depp. What? We never would have thought at the time about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and now all of this stuff has come out in the trial, and the world's gone, what? Do you know what I mean? So I think the fact that these guys, the likes of Chrissy Teigen and Meghan Markle, are being so open about it, I think is a good thing for the world. And I just want to repeat this. I am not a fan of Meghan. I am definitely not a mouthpiece of Meghan. I have criticized her so many times about the environmental flights, about the way in which she conducts herself with the press and declaring war on them, and saying that she's not going to communicate or touch base or associate herself with them in any sort of way. And also, of course, the Remembrance Day photo shoot at the graveyard, which I thought was beyond distasteful. But in terms of this and this issue, I do think we do need to treat it with some sensitivity here.
Oh, God, absolutely. And I think what she set out to do there was to, lead by example, open a discussion about experiences of miscarriage, because it's an all too familiar thing that many women and families have to deal with, and the devastating consequences of those. But I just wanted to read a little excerpt, the one that sort of really sticks out for me. I knew as I clutched my firstborn child, she writes, that I was losing my second. Hours later, I lay in a hospital bed holding my husband's hand. And it's in that same sort of area of the essay that she describes how she was changing Archie's diaper, over here. And that is how she, that is when she felt the sharp cramp. And she fell to the floor and sung Archie, or hummed Archie, a lullaby. And I think that just paints probably what is a familiar picture to a lot of women and families around the world. And she probably feels she's duty bound to share things like that. And I think the reason that we're hearing about it many months later is, yes, to allow some time for her to deal with it and become ready to open up about these experiences. But also, Josh, like you've mentioned, the press, the news cycle around the Sussexes, it's quite a difficult one to navigate. So she would have had to have taken that into account and maybe waited for an opportune moment to do this, because releasing it in, one of the press storms that they've battled over the recent months and most of this year, it would have either been drowned out or taken in probably not the same way as it is now.
I mean, there are so many ifs, whens, and buts scenarios that we can go over and over and over with in our head. And maybe if she announced, yes, she's pregnant, and then, oh, she's had a miscarriage, maybe if that was announced at the time, yes, the news cycle would have been going absolutely wild, and yes, critics all over the place would be talking about this. I think this is clearly her, in her own way, wanting to tell the story in her own words. Like this wasn't an article that was being reported. This was an essay that she wrote to the New York Times. Whether she was paid for it or not, that's a completely different sort of question, and I'm sure that's going to be asked. And if she was paid for it, I'm sure that's going to raise a lot of eyebrows, and I have my own opinions on that if so. But then at the same time, the excerpts, the stuff that she was sharing in the article was just so raw. The thing that got me was not just she sang Archie the lullaby, and yes, that's a very powerful image. She felt the cramp. She knew she was losing the baby, but she looked to her son for comfort. And that's something that Chrissy Teigen has said. She finds comfort in her children, Luna and Miles. And John Legend says they're going to stick together as a family. But the thing that got me in the article was when she says, I was holding Harry's hand, covered fresh from tears. And that did devastate me, because we have to think to ourselves, yes, they are royals and we can criticize them in following protocol and following procedure. But at the same time, they're a human family with human emotions. And I think it does kind of put things into perspective, especially, listen, they are inactive members of the royal family, so-called former. Are they actually former? That's another question. The titles are inactive, but the titles are still there. And obviously there is going to be a forever association with the royal family. But at the same time, we do have to remember, yes, they're human. And I will, on this occasion, and I want to stress it is on this occasion, I will applaud Meghan for talking in the way in which she has done about in the New York Times about the miscarriage, because I do think that this is going to be an essay that is going to help a lot of people.
Absolutely. And obviously thoughts with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex at this difficult time, reliving that awful experience. But let's move on to Johnny Depp, who is both out of pocket and out of appeals and out of his depth, as we mentioned earlier.
Sorry, I'm just going to break down the pun. Depp.
I can throw it up again. I had a bit of trouble playing them earlier, but I can. There you go.
So proud of that. So proud of that.
There we go. Johnny out of his depth. Anyway, bad news. Not what he wanted to expect. He's been denied the permission to appeal and ordered to pay several hundreds, more than £500,000.
Hundreds of pounds in legal costs. Yeah. Am I surprised about this? No. The judge said his appeal didn't have a reasonable chance of success. And listen, I know full well that a lot of Johnny Depp fans are out here on social media, and I know a lot of them do not agree with my opinions whatsoever. I mean, the fact of the matter is, when the trial verdict came in and I said the evidence against Johnny was insurmountable, and I had loads of fans going, no, he was abusive to Amber Heard, he was this, he was that. People need to get their head around the facts. Whatever Amber Heard did or did not do is one thing, but it does not take away from the fact that Johnny Depp still did what he did. And listen, so many people are going to comment, and I think we do have to be very, very careful in how we approach the subject, because we don't want to say anything that's illegal. I don't want to be sued. I definitely don't have the money to fight a court case. But at the same time, I believe obviously Amber and Johnny's relationship was clearly toxic. There were allegations on both sides of the courtroom. But the way Johnny Depp used that trial, yes, in the trial, the burden of proof was in the Sun, but Johnny used the trial effectively to clear his name. So in terms of the showbiz aspect, the burden of proof, in terms of if we're looking at it from a showbiz angle, is Johnny Depp needed to prove that he wasn't a wife beater, and
it's so ill-advised. Why, the basis of a libel claim is to disprove what was written, and if the public nature of their toxic, abusive, unhealthy relationship, which neither side was an angel, both sides actively took part in the abuse. Why did he think he was able to disprove what was written in the Sun? It beggars belief, because that is a libel case which could not have ever been won. And I don't know who was telling him that he could. Maybe it was pure arrogance from Johnny. But there is no way that libel case could have been won for the pure reason that it is a libel case. It was about the term wife beater and what was written about him in the paper, which was, in all intents and purposes, if you put it down, it has been proven by a court to have been true.
Exactly. And I think that's what we have to bear in mind here, that this wasn't, Amber Heard was never on trial here. And I know a lot of Johnny's fans have been coming for Amber Heard and saying that she's been lying, she's been this, she's been that, and saying that she was abusive to Johnny. And whether she was or not, it doesn't take away from the fact that clearly Johnny Depp did certain actions against Amber Heard, and that is clearly fact. That was proven in court. Listen, this wasn't a perfect relationship, and I'm sure things were going on both sides of the of this relationship here. But it's what you said. This was toxic. This was abusive. Whether or not it was on both sides, that hasn't been proven. But at the same time, Amber Heard was not the one who was on trial here. This was Johnny's trial, and at the same time, the Sun had plenty of information to back up their case, and therefore the definition of the word insurmountable is too hard, too great to overcome. And unfortunately, the evidence for Johnny was too great to overcome. Bearing in mind, what the judge didn't believe every single case, or at least he didn't accept. I think it was 2 cases that he didn't accept, but that he said there is a possibility that they could also be true. But it was over 10. I think it was was it a dozen cases of abuse that Amber was alleging?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
But there were, let's just say, there were multiple cases, there were multiple incidents that were being used in the trial here. So yes, I do believe the evidence was insurmountable. And listen, I think if Johnny is a victim of domestic abuse, he also needs to be heard. I do think when it came to this trial, the relationship was shown to be exactly what it was, and that was toxic, it was abusive, and it was a liability in terms of Hollywood. And I think the fact that Johnny Depp is going to be replaced in the Fantastic Beasts series, the fact that he's rumored to being replaced in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. They're reportedly making a prequel, and Zac Efron is reportedly in talks to replace Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow in that. There's plenty of stuff to talk about and dissect here, but I think it has to be made clear in terms of Johnny's fans. Listen, I get it, I understand. You guys are devastated about your hero, and this trial was an utter, I'm not going to call it a farce, but it was a real shame, because there was so much dirty laundry that was being aired in public, which didn't necessarily need to be aired, and wouldn't have been aired if Johnny did not take it to court. And I think as well, he wanted to use this trial and the British courts and their judgments in order to kind of bolster his case over in the US when it came to Amber Heard's own opinion piece in one of the newspapers over there. And I think he wanted to use a case to kind of bolster that, use this case and the judgment of this case to obviously bolster that case to prove a point. But obviously it has backfired, as well as wanting to clear his name. But the fact of the matter is, this trial has done far more harm than good for Johnny Depp's career. And especially because now studios are dropping him from projects left, right and centre. And as well, he brought half of Hollywood into the trial, you know, mentioning names like Channing Tatum, Paul Bettany, showing off text that Paul Bettany said. I mean, Paul, I wonder what Paul's thinking. And then as well, there's mentioning James Franco and the way he referred to Leonardo DiCaprio. You know, I can't also see Hollywood maybe wanting to work with him that much in the future either after this.
Well, he's going to need the work because he's got a huge bill to pay, and Johnny is famously bad with his money, and that situation
putting it lightly.
Improve.
Putting it very lightly.
Anyway, let's move on to the future of Little Mix. So we heard recently that Jessie Nelson was taking an extended break because of health reasons. We saw quite a sort of a very shocking documentary from Jessie recently on BBC Three about the bullying that she faced, because it was called Odd One Out, because she was considered the ugly or fat member of Little Mix, and how that bullying affected her. We saw that she had attempts of suicide, and has still to this day a lot of struggles relating to that. So a lot of people are pulling the two together. So is it a mental thing? Is it a physical health thing? I'm not sure, but either way, it's put a lot of question marks over what is, to this point, been a very, very successful girl group, and I think the only successful group that's come out of the X Factor.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we have had marginally successful groups that come out of the X Factor. Look at JLS, look at Union J. They have received some success.
Nowhere near
Little Mix. So of course, Little Mix were the first group to ever actually win X Factor, and they didn't audition as a group either. They were pulled as separate solo artists and put together. We know something's happened here. Something has very clearly happened here. Obviously, people are using the documentary. The way the statement was made that Jessie's taking an extended break, they said due to private medical reasons. So there could, unfortunately, there's all sorts of speculations. Maybe this is a long-term condition that she's dealing with. I don't want to say the big C word, but, you know, it could be sinister. something sinister like cancer or anything. You know, I'm not saying that's the truth. This is pure and utter speculation. All we know is something has clearly happened. And yes, in terms of, there is obviously the documentary, but as well, we know Jessie has been struggling for a while now. Little Mix during the pandemic took part in a live stream, or not, was it a live stream performance? They took part in quite a few performances for Meerkat Music. There was a big campaign for Compare the Meerkat, and Little Mix and Take That were involved. And on stage, Jessie Nelson had a panic attack, and Perry Edwards took over from her in some of her parts in the song. So we know Jessie has been feeling those problems, and anything could. Sorry, oh, bit of a dry throat there. Anything could have happened here, you know. I maybe as you said as well, in terms of suicide attempts, maybe there has been something like that going on. I mean, there's all sorts of scenarios. One scenario that instantly popped into my head, right, I thought was maybe Jessie has decided to leave the band, but it's not 100% confirmed. The managers and the girls maybe think they can win her over, so that's why they're saying it's an extended break and not filling out full from the band, like Zayn Malik in One Direction, or Jerry Halliwell and the Spice Girls, and they're thinking maybe she'll come back after she takes some time off, or maybe there has been a serious incident like a mental breakdown or a suicide attempt where, you know, she does want to get back from the band. She does want to get back to the band later, but she does need to take the time to get treated for any sort of condition. Maybe it is something more serious medically. We don't know, but something has clearly happened here. What I think is important is, listen, the girls are still releasing music, and the girls are still promoting their music together. What I think is also very noticeable is, obviously, the girls haven't, strictly speaking, they've been swerving any sort of questions when it comes to Jessie. They haven't really been addressing it fully. They haven't even wished her well on social media. And I've got a couple of theories. Either one, there might be bad blood there. I'm not sure, but I don't think so. The other one is, Jessie will address this controversy or whatever has gone on. Jessie will address this in her own words within her own time, and maybe the girls don't want to either draw more attention than is necessary to it, not sweep it under the rug carpet, but maybe the girls are giving her the time to deal with this, and then she will talk about what she's been through in her own way. That's another thought.
I think you're probably right there. I think that's the one that I see to be the case, because I mean, if you look at girl groups that were created, let's compare Girls Aloud to Little Mix. I think you can tell which one of those had actual friendships in them, and I think from seeing Little Mix, you know, in their interview technique, they're quite good in interviews. They're quite, you know, they're quite switched on, each and every one of them. And yeah, I think they are considering, well, I mean, they're one of the biggest girl groups. They are the biggest girl group in the United Kingdom. So I'm sure this is being very carefully managed. But you know, the few rumors about solo projects, that the girls are going after solo albums soon, but that was only starting to happen when we heard about Jessie. But of course, we've heard today that Leanne Pinnock is going to be taking up an acting role in a Christmas film.
Yes, and I think the Christmas film's called Boxing Day, according to Deadline, and it's going to be
that's it. It's an all-black cast with a debut director.
But I mean, what I will say is, listen, when it comes to solo projects, I am very skeptical because, you know, they are very much in the midst of a promo tour for their new album Confetti, and obviously they've had Holiday at the beginning of the pandemic, and that now they've got Sweet Melody that they've been performing. They've had a very busy pandemic in terms of what they've done. Obviously, Little Mix The Search airing on the BBC, and in terms of obviously this press tour that they're doing to promote their album, and talk show appearances left, right and center, and interviews. And I mean, they've been busy. So I think, you know, they still are very much together as a group in terms of what they're doing, in terms of their projects together, and they're still releasing new music. They're going to release a track, I think, with Nathan Dawes, isn't it? So I believe so. So this is the thing. They're still very much a group item in terms of what.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. And I don't personally think their solo projects anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't think
because they are so active, and it's really important for we keep going. But I think it's really important for them with how they are right now and how they react as a group to this. This is gonna. It has the potential, absolute potential, to destroy the group and destroy their careers. So they have to do this right. They have to do this right. And I think by continuing with the search on the BBC, continuing with the press tours, continuing with those performances, I think they prove to the public that this doesn't mean that Little Mix is going, because of course it's a story that's told that returns. History repeats itself. When one band member leaves, the group doesn't have long to go. Will Little Mix break that mold? I hope so.
Well, all I'll say is listen. That after, in terms of One Direction and in terms of the Spice Girls, two obviously huge groups back in their time, and of course with massive departures in terms of Jerry Halliwell and then Zayn Malik, both of those groups made a whole album after the members left, and in terms of the Spice Girls, they had two very successful songs in terms of Goodbye, obviously, which was like a tribute to Jerry, but then also as well the song Holler, with that music video, and that was amazing. And One Direction as well, they were still going strong after Zayn left. So I don't think this is going to be anything career. Even if Jessie does leave the band, I don't think this is going to be career-ending sort of conversations for Little Mix. It's perfect. It would be perfectly acceptable for them to continue as a trio, and they're still very much active as a trio in terms of what they're doing, in terms of press tours, in terms of single releases, that's and in terms of Little Mix the Search and what they plan to do at the EMAs, they're still very much active as a group. And I think during this time we do have to say our thoughts go out to Jessie and whatever she's going through, if it is really bad and if it is really sinister. Obviously, attention should be paid to that, but I don't think this is career-ending sort of stuff here. And as well, some of the best groups in the world continued as trios. Look at Destiny's Child.
People only started to take notice when they were a trio.
Exactly. And also the Sugar Babes, the trio that kept on changing. Groups coming in and out the whole time. One in, it was literally one in and then one out, but they had all different incarnations as all different threes. The fact of the matter is, a girl group doesn't necessarily need 4 people to be a success. They can continue on as a 3, and I have no doubt that if they do continue on as a 3, even though it will be different, if they do decide to release new music as a 3, it will still be a success.
She's quite a big and noticeable voice on their tracks, though. So if there is new music without Jessie, I think she'll be sorely missed.
I think they all are. Like Perry as well has a very distinctive voice. I think that, and especially because, as I said before, in the Meerkat music performances, Perry picked up the baton when Jessie was really struggling on stage with her mental health and how she had a panic attack. So I do think, listen, there will always be contingency plans, always.
Mm-hmm. Right, Josh, we have got to wrap it up because my battery is looking scarily red on my laptop, but you're off again next week. Go on, rub it all in.
I am off for the next 2 weeks, guys. I am off on holiday. My family have got some business stuff happening in another country, so I'm going to be helping a bit with that. So we're off for a bit of business travel, but I'm going to be off for 2 weeks, but Offbeat will be back in 3 weeks with a bumper episode. It is my birthday coming up in December, so we'll make sure we'll have a showbiz celebration.
Fantastic. And I'm looking to be back next week with the host of a brand new I'm a Celebrity podcast, Esme Todd. She's going to be telling us what's going on this year, what's happening in the castle, who to look out for, and who could potentially winning that crown. And then back for diabetes
Team
news.
Victoria. Sorry, I just
who are we going for?
I want to say Team Victoria.
Team Victoria.
Either Victoria.
Jordan North for me. Jordan North for me.
I know.
Anyway,
I know you love Jordan, but listen, I think Jordan is very lovable. But I love Bev. I love the three that I love most in that camp are Beverly for her comforting nature. I think Victoria has balls of steel, and I gotta love Shane Ritchie. I mean, I find him.
I interviewed him recently. I filmed with Shane not so long ago. Really, really nice guy, genuine guy, and a great laugh too. So good luck to all the campmates. We'll be hearing more about that next week when I'll be chatting to. But from me and Josh, see you later.
Bye.
I literally.